All right, everyone. We're going to call this meeting to order and welcome everyone being here today. I declare that we do have quorum, and I'm going to ask Councillor Renwick to read the land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Chair Stone. Happily do that. I would like to respectfully acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabeg under the terms of the Robinson-Huron Treaty No. 61 of 1850 and the Williams Treaty of 1923. We commit to acknowledge, learn, educate, create opportunity, honor sacred places, and take actions towards real truth and reconciliation in support of our commitment to walking the path together in respect, peace, and harmony for future generations. Miigwech.
Thank you very much. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? I see none. All right. I'd like to welcome everyone to the public portion of the meeting to consider applications to amend the Community Planning Permit Bylaw 2022-97 pursuant to Section 34 of the Planning Act. The procedure of the public meeting will be as follows. A brief explanation of the purpose and effect of the application and any correspondence received to date will be given by staff. The applicant or the representative will be asked to provide any additional comments without repeating the information already outlined by staff. Any members of the public present in person or electronically will then be permitted to ask questions or provide comments respecting the application. Council will then have the opportunity to question the applicant, the planner, or anyone giving presentation. Once the public meeting is concluded, the input is received and the proposed amendments will be considered by Council. Any persons making representation are first requested to state their name and mailing address, and I note that presentations are limited to 10 minutes. It's important to note that should Council approve any bylaw amendment applications this afternoon, the applicant, the municipality, and certain specified persons and public bodies, as defined by the Planning Act, may appeal the decision. During the 20-day appeal period, which commences on the date on which the notice of Council's decision is provided, no building permits may be issued for the work commenced. If you wish to be notified of the passage of a bylaw, any appeals, or possible Ontario Land Tribunal hearings, you must file either with the recording secretary or with the clerk a written request for notification prior to the passage of the proposed bylaw. Respecting the community planning permit applications, it is important to note that a council decision on such applications may only be appealed by the applicant themselves. Each notice of complete application and public meeting included an explanation of the purpose and effect of the proposed amendment, and notice was required to be posted at the subject lands. Notice was therefore considered to have been provided in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act and applicable sections of the Huntsville Official Plan. And with all of that, I'm going to ask Lisa to the table to speak to the Muskoka Road 10 application.
Thank you, Chair Stone, and through you, the subject property for this application is 1503 Muskoka Road 10. The property is within the waterfront and rural designations in the official plan and falls within the Mary Lake Ridgeline. The property is within the waterfront backlot, WB precinct, in the Community Planning Permit Bylaw, with natural constraint overlays 1 and 2 indicating wetlands and steep slopes. And this property is accessed via Muskoka Road 10, which is an arterial year-round maintained district road. The purpose and effect of this application is to change the precinct on a portion of the lands from a waterfront backlot precinct to a rural with exception precinct, being the areas highlighted in orange there, to permit the creation of one new rural lot with a frontage of 138 meters on an arterial road, which would be created as a result of consent application B21-2025, and to add a conservation precinct, shown in blue on the screen there, to protect Gardner Lake and the wetlands and include a 30-meter buffer to those features. Under the Community Planning Permit Bylaw, lots on arterial roads in the rural precinct are required to have a minimum frontage of 150 meters. As stated, the applicant is requesting through this application to create a new rural lot with 138 meters of frontage on an arterial road. Muskoka Road 10 is a district road, however, and the town's official plan states that development on district roads is to satisfy the policies and requirements of the district. District staff provided comments included in the agenda package stating they would not be opposed to approval of the applications provided certain criteria are met through the consent process. The approval of these applications would allow the owners to retain the existing maple syrup operation on the proposed severed lot without necessitating further development or variations from the CPP bylaw, as the rural precinct permits a farm, including a maple sugar harvesting bush, as a permitted principal use. Development controls, including the requirement for a community planning permit, would remain in place should further development occur on the proposed new rural lot, as it will still be within the Mary Lake Ridgeline policy area, and there are areas of steep slopes throughout the property which would require review in relation to any proposal. The conservation precinct will, of course, protect the wetland and water features. And so these are views of the proposed severed rural portion of the lot. And then the application was circulated in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act and the Community Planning Permit Bylaw, and no objections have been received to date. Given the analysis of the town's policy and the proposal, the application appears to conform with the official plan and the provincial planning statement, and as such, staff are recommending approval. And I would be happy to answer any questions you may have. And just on the screen now are images from the proposed retained lands, which would remain waterfront backlot.
Excellent. Thank you. I'll call on the applicant or the representative to make any comments. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hello, members of the council. My name is Sam Soya. I'm a senior planner with Tulloch at 80 Main Street West in Huntsville, postal code P1H1W9, and I'm assisting the applicant with this application. Thank you to staff for their planning report and presentation, and for a very collaborative pre-consultation meeting, which also included district staff to ensure any concerns along Muskoka Road 10 will be addressed to their satisfaction as well. We've submitted two applications, the consent application to permit the severance of this one new lot, and a CPP amendment application to change the precinct to the severed lot from waterfront backlot to the rural precinct and permit the proposed frontage along the district road. Both the severed and retained lots will greatly exceed the 4 hectare lot area minimum, and the severed lot will have an area of over 29 hectares. The town's minimum requirements for lot frontage are also satisfied, with the exception of the requirement for rural lots to have 150 meters of frontage on a district Class A road. In this case, the proposed frontage is 138 meters, and as I've mentioned, and as Ms. Gillen has also mentioned, through pre-consultation and the district's comments, they have no concerns subject to standard conditions for entrance permit, road widening, and road setback conditions. The proposed change in precinct from waterfront backlot to rural is appropriate for the severed lot in consideration of the rural character, substantial separation from Mary Lake. We have no concerns with placing the wetland that extends onto the property from the rear lot line, plus a 30-meter buffer into the conservation precinct. And we've recently provided that updated sketch as well to staff, and it's been included in the draft bylaw. We also have no concerns with the recommended conditions of approval, and I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks very much. Is there anyone present who would like to speak to this application? I see no hands. If you're anyone online that would like to speak to this application, you'd need to raise your electronic hand.
Chair Stone, I see no hands raised.
All right. Then I'll go to council. Any comments or questions for council? Deputy Mayor Armour.
Couldn't let it go by without something. Thanks, Chair Stone. Just a very quick one. When I'm looking at the sketch, you see 2 proposed driveways on it. So are they going to retain one for the severed lot, and it's the original lot's getting a driveway? Which one's getting the actual needs a driveway permit?
Through Mr. Chair. Yes, there's one new driveway proposed actually for the retained lot. So and then the existing driveway would become just for access to the severed lot. We had originally discussed a shared entrance actually with the district, and they suggested that they would like to see two entrances actually to avoid any sorts of shared maintenance agreements and that type of thing, to ensure that those accesses are kept free and clear. So they that's where that we agreed to provide a second entrance.
Thank you. Councillor Renwick.
Thank you, Chair Stone. Just to follow up to Deputy Mayor Armour's question, so that the new driveway then would be on the existing or on the retained lot, correct? So you'd,
That is correct.
yeah, okay, thank you.
Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thanks, Chair Stone. I just wanted to bring attention to the Greer Road is mentioned in the proposed retain law would have an approximate area of 6 hectares and an area of 138 meters on frontage on Greer Road. Is
Sorry,
Go
through
ahead.
you, Chair Stone. If that was in the report, I apologize. That was an error. There's nothing on Greer Road in this.
just so it doesn't move forward with Greer Road in it?
Okay. All right, I see no other hands. Moved by Councillor Schumacher, seconded by Councillor Clark. Be it resolved that Planning Council approve Community Planning Permit Bylaw Amendment CPPA 28/2025 HTE, the purpose and effect of which is to change the precinct on a portion of the subject lands from a waterfront backlot precinct to a conservation precinct and a rural with exception precinct. 2, reduce the minimum required frontage on an arterial road from 500 meters to, 150 meters to 138 meters to permit the creation of one new rural lot. Comments or questions? All in favor? And that carries. All right. Right. Now that all comments have been received, I declare the public meetings respecting the above application to be concluded. We will now move to the non-public portion of the meeting. Madeline is going to speak to the White House Road application.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair, the subject property is located at 606 White House Road. The lot is designated rural in Huntsville's official plan and is under the rural residential precinct in the community planning permit bylaw. An application has been submitted to permit the construction of a 52 square meter, 1-story detached garage on the lot. The Class 3 community planning permit is required to reduce the front yard setback from 12 meters to 1.9 meters for the detached garage only. In the rural area, garage structures are permitted closer to the front lot line than the dwelling. However, the front yard setback of the respective precinct applies to ensure appropriate distances from abutting developments and roadways and provide sufficient areas for access, drainage, and buffers to be maintained and established. The proposal has addressed the criteria for evaluating variations as outlined within the report. And additionally, the proposal meets the intent of the official plan and rural designation, as the 1-story detached garage maintains the low-density nature of the property, is consistent with neighboring development, and maintains existing mature vegetation and surrounding the structure to ensure the garage blends in, causes less visual impact, and maintains a buffer from the traveled roadway. The application was circulated in accordance with the community planning permit bylaw, and no comments were received. Through staff's review and analysis, the application would appear to meet the intent of the applicable criteria for approval under the CPP bylaw and is consistent with the provincial planning statement, and therefore staff are recommending approval subject to the conditions of final approval as listed within the report package. Thank you for listening, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks very much. I'll call on the applicant or the representative to make any comments.
Hi.
Hi.
Madeline has represented us perfectly. I can't think of anything else other than this is really the only place on the property we can put it because the east side of the property goes down a hill. So we're kind of tied to this spot. The existing shed garage that you saw in the photographs were there when we moved in, and it's just not enough.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, council, any comments or questions? Councillor Renwick.
Thank you, Chair Stone, and through you, I guess to Madeline or to the owner. The new garage is going to be 52 meters squared. What's the footprint of the one that's there now?
I think it's, I want to say 16 by 24, I think. My person is sitting in Emerge right now, so he has all the numbers,
Okay.
Battling pneumonia. So
Oh, I'm
that,
sorry.
I know. Sorry, I don't mean to bring drama to the day. But I believe that was what it was.
Through you, Chair Stone, apologies. I don't have the size listed on the site plan here.
Okay. But I'm assuming that it's going to be larger than what's there.
Definitely longer.
Longer.
Similar width-wise,
Okay.
but definitely longer.
Right. So, and if I may, Chair Stone, so that the trees that are there now between the road and where the structure will be maintained. I'm hoping.
The ones right in front, right by the road, yes,
Yeah.
they're going to stay. We want to keep those for sure. There's a couple farther back that we definitely have to take out.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
You're
I hope
welcome.
your partner's doing okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, any other comments or questions? All right. Moved by Deputy Mayor Armour, seconded by Councillor Morrison. Be it resolved that Planning Council approve Community Planning Permit Application CPP 128-2025 HTE, the purpose and effect of which is to permit the construction of a 52 square meter, one-story detached garage and provide relief from subsections 4.8.4 of the Community Planning Permit Bylaw 2022-97 as amended, to reduce the front yard setback from 12 meters to 1.9 meters for a detached garage only. And further, that a Class 3 community planning permit be issued to authorize the above-described development, conditional on the proposed development being undertaken in accordance with the community planning permit, including final approved plans and drawings, all exterior lighting being dark sky compliant in accordance with the Town of Huntsville outdoor lighting bylaw as amended from time to time. Appropriate erosion and sediment control measures must be installed prior to commencement of any works and maintained until all disturbed areas have been stabilized. And all disturbed areas being stabilized and restored to existing conditions or better immediately upon completion of the works. Comments or questions? All in favor? And that carries.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, Madeline. Am I signing something? Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay, Madeline, you're staying with us to speak to the Deer Lake Road application. You can go ahead.
Thank you. And through you, Chair Stone, the subject property is located at 736 Deer Lake Road. The lot is designated rural in Huntsville's official plan and is under the Rural Residential Precinct and the Community Planning Permit Bylaw. An application has been submitted to demolish the existing non-complying 78.5 square meter dwelling and 45 square meter detached garage and replace it with a new 85.5 square meter one-story single detached dwelling. To facilitate the proposal, a Class 3 community planning permit is required to reduce the front yard setback from 12 meters to 1.6 meters, reduce the west interior side yard setback from 5 meters to 1.5 meters, increase primary lot coverage from 10% to 18.2%, and permit development on an existing lot with private services that is 470 square meters in lot area. Additionally, conditions of provisional approval require that an entrance permit be issued by the District of Muskoka for access onto a district roadway, and a letter of confirmation be provided from a licensed well installer confirming the suitability of well location in relation to the district roadway. Further conditions of final approval have been listed within the report package, and amongst the standard conditions include a condition for the existing dwelling, detached garage, and privy to be demolished. The existing dwelling is estimated to have been constructed in 1940 according to MPAC, and would be considered a legal non-complying building under the Community Planning Permit Bylaw. Currently, the property is serviced with a holding tank, which is not permitted for new year-round development under the Ontario Building Code. The detached garage was constructed in 2005 and would not be considered a legal non-complying structure. The existing dwelling, garage, and privy, as previously mentioned, are proposed to be removed as a result of this application, and a septic system will be installed on the property along with a new drilled well. The CPP bylaw permits the reconstruction of legal non-complying buildings, but restricts them to the original footprint, size, height, and location. In this instance, the proposal involves slight changes to these aspects, and therefore non-complying development rights no longer apply, and relief from current development standards are required for the proposed dwelling. Further, when reviewing existing lots of record, where a lot has lesser frontage or area than required by the bylaw and is legally capable of being conveyed, development may proceed subject to the proposal meeting applicable criteria as outlined in the report. In this instance, the proposal will enhance the overall conditions of the property by removing non-complying structures, replacing a holding tank with a septic system, and constructing a safe and habitable dwelling on the lot. Additionally, an approved septic permit has been issued by the building department, and obtaining an entrance permit has been included as a condition prior to planning permit issuance. The proposal has addressed the criteria for evaluating variations as outlined and detailed within the report. And additionally, the proposal meets the intent of the official plan and rural designation, as the proposed one-story detached garage maintains the low-density nature of the property, is sited in a level and clear area, and is of an appropriate scale. Further, Part E of the official plan outlines water supply and sanitary sewer services, which apply to this proposal. In this instance, the property currently has a drilled well and, as mentioned, a holding tank, and as part of this the redevelopment of the property, the applicant is re-drilling the well in a new location, removing the holding tank and privy on the property, and all to install the septic system. Part F of the official plan outlines implementation matters respecting both non-complying buildings and structures and existing lots, and the applicants have demonstrated that the lot is of a sufficient size to accommodate the use proposed, reduces the non-compliances, and has demonstrated careful siting of development and services. The application was circulated in accordance with the Community Planning Permit Bylaw. One letter of objection was received from a neighboring property owner and was included in the report package. District staff also noted no objection to the application, provided that an entrance permit be issued and the applicant submit a letter of confirmation from a licensed well installer. These have both been included as conditions of provisional approval, and district comments were also included in the report package. Through staff's review and analysis, the application would appear to meet the intent of the applicable criteria for approval under the CPP bylaw, is consistent with the provincial planning statement, and therefore staff are recommending approval subject to the conditions of provisional approval and final approval as listed within the report. Thank you for listening, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thanks very much. We do have a deputation from Terry Excel, and if you can come down. Welcome.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, Madam Mayor, and councilors, thank you for having me here today. And I will begin. My name is Terry Exel, and my wife Linda and I are here today to oppose the permit application to 736 Deer Lake Road. We purchased our property in 1975 and built our family home in 1977. We live on 722 Deer Lake Road and are the abutting property from the west to the property in question, 736. We wanted to live in a rural setting with as much privacy as possible. Our neighbors to the north and south were like-minded. Our neighbor to the south, John McIntyre, who's deceased now, but his father of Ed, the present owner of 742 Deer Lake Road, who also opposes this application. And actually, I was telling Madeline I was to bring his letter in, and so excited to get to the meeting, I forgot to pick it up. So he can be reached by phone anytime this afternoon if you were interested in confirming that. Otherwise, I can, or Eddie can bring it in at that point. Who, John McIntyre was our neighbor at the time, and he recommended our present, or where we did build on the hill on the edge of the field, instead of farther west in the bush. We took his suggestion. John worked for the town of Huntsville and persuaded us the cottage lot below was too small to ever have a permanent residence, and the owners only stayed for a short time. He was right. For almost 50 years, we had our private meadow to the east of our house. The original unopened road allowance between lot 25 and lot 26 was never properly closed up, and the stable built there originally morphed into a cottage. In 1995, we were approached by the second owner in our time of ownership to sign off on that road allowance. He had done a considerable amount of work to the place and needed us to sign off our rights to the road allowance should he ever decide to sell. We agreed to help him, not anticipating any possibility of a permanent residence ever going up there. We are shocked and disappointed that this could be a possibility. A permanent residence would infringe on our privacy. As I said in the letter I sent in, it had been occupied over those 50 years about 5% of the time. Folks would come for a couple of weeks holidays, or a few days. This lot is totally out of character for the size and shape of the lots in the neighborhood. It does not provide sufficient area for access, drainage, and buffers. The access to the north tip of the lot, approximately 20 meters in length, is severely restricted by the reduced side and front yards since it is a triangle. Access to the proposed new well site would be non-existent for a machine when the new structure is up, unless trees are cleared on the road allowance and another culvert is installed in the ditch. Buffers and mature vegetation will not be maintained because there is minimal side and front yards. I was wondering if, would it be possible to put up slide 5, 6?
The slides that were just shown?
Yeah, of the pictures, yeah.
Chair Stone, is that okay? We show the slides?
The ones that are in the package, that's fine.
Yeah, the ones that I just
Yes.
presented.
So slide 5 there shows there is no natural boundary there, really. There's some brush. Well, on the south side, as you can see behind the garage, there is no buffer there. The septic bed is proposed in there. Slide 6 is that the one? That's not the one I had, but it doesn't matter. As you can see, out to the side, to the right of that small shed is our field, and again, you know, pretty open access there. And particularly slide 11.
So staff have used additional photographs in their presentation. We have photographs in our package that we've all seen as well.
Okay, okay. do you have slide 11? That's one in particular.
This is different than the,
Oh,
the
Okay.
photos are similar, but not
Yeah,
all of them from
okay.
the report have been used in the presentation.
when we decided to sell to the second owner of the place, I said, anybody that buys it is going to want to come out onto our field because there is no room on the property. So he agreed to put a fence up for us signing off on our rights on the road allowance at that time. As you can't see this picture, but you know, right now there's 1.2 meter clearance, which wouldn't allow for a buffer, wouldn't allow for a fence, wouldn't allow for a solid barrier. I mean, if the snow was cleaned off, it would pile up against the house. The applicant claims he will maintain all existing vegetation on the property. Not only will this prove impossible, but the roots of fence-line trees and some completely on our property will be damaged or removed for excavations. The staff report states privacy will be maintained with existing dense vegetation buffers. Actually, there are complete open spaces on the west side of the building facing our place. Clear privacy won't be maintained. Only a privacy wall erected by the owner would accomplish that. This lot is too small to establish appropriate vegetation for buffering. We question the location of the well site. Looks to be 2 meters from our property, 2 meters from the road allowance, 8 meters from the road ditch, and very close to the runoff pond from our field and hills in the spring, making it susceptible to contamination. This lot is approximately 1/8 the size of a 1 acre building lot. We question the septic approval when actual well location is not set. And we question why this application is land use compatible when setbacks are so reduced. We see no commitment to have 0% lot coverage for accessory buildings. And I think we talked about that. Did we talk about that?
I don't believe so.
No, okay. And his septic system shown is encroaching on the 3 meter setback on the south side. The Ontario Planning Act specifically delegates the authority to local municipalities to control lot size, shape through zoning, and shape through zoning bylaws and the process of subdivision control, which governs the division of land. The zoning bylaws then set the specific legally enforceable requirements. These same principles were in effect back in 1975 when we made the decision to build where we did. We trusted in the process of bylaws that were in place at the time, which stated that this lot was too small for permanent residence. Fast forward 50 years, and that trust in bylaws and local governments is very much a thing with this application. Lot coverage is 80% greater than Huntsville bylaw. Lot area is 35% of the required. Lot front yard setback is reduced 750%. Lot west interior side yard setback to our own property is reduced 333%. Distance to the traveled road from the dwelling is much smaller than any place on Deer Lake Road. Because it is so close to the road, it is totally out of character to the rest of Deer Lake Road. Because of the decidedly disheveled and neglected maintenance since this owner acquired it, including leaving windows open in the main buildings year-round, this lot is out of
Excuse me, that's 10 minutes. If you can wrap it up very quickly.
Okay, yeah. We work very hard to build the place we love. In retirement, early May mornings are filled with sounds of the waterfall on the other side of Deer Lake Road and some 40 songbirds flying across our field. Human activity seldom interferes until the road gets busier or someone is visiting the cottage. In 50 years, we have never complained about 736 until now and had accepted that it would only ever be a seasonal cottage. We are asking council to help us protect our home and our lifestyle by administering the well-thought-out bylaws that protect our glorious community. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. All right, if I can ask the applicant to come up and speak. Welcome.
Good afternoon. I prepared a speech. Hi, I'm Thomas Guthrie. I'm here about my application to build.
Take your time. Don't you worry about it. Want a drink of water? I think Councillor Fitzgerald's going to get you a drink.
I'm here about my application to build my home. Along the side of my lot bordering my neighbor's property, there's a row of mostly poplar and white spruce trees. Right along the property line, they're old, past their prime, packed closely together. When we dig our foundation, half of those root systems will be destroyed, and they just won't survive. I understand removing them might be upsetting, but it's the safest and most responsible way to handle the property. My intention isn't just to build a house. I'm planning to clean up the property, which currently has very old buildings and a garage. I will be removing the garage, reducing the number of buildings, and improving the overall look of the property for the neighborhood. I'm also focused on building an affordable home for myself while keeping the property safe, healthy. After construction, I plan to replant native trees in a hedgerow with native shrubs set back safely from the house so the area is still feeling natural and green. I just wanted to make sure that the property is safe, tidy, and a positive addition to this neighborhood. Thanks so much for listening.
Thank you very much. You might just want to stay there. We might have some questions for you. So I'm going to go to council. Are there any comments or questions? I'm going to go to Mayor Alcock.
Thank you, Chair Stone, and thank you for coming forward today. I know it's a difficult task, especially when you're talking about your own application. It's very difficult and very much appreciated. So this question is directed to Madeline. There were issues raised about the existing structures and comments about vegetation. And when I read the report, and I'm just really getting confirmation that the applicant is removing all of the, and I think you just said this, the existing accessory structures. So that's one. And two, the impact. I understand some vegetation would have to be removed. And as you say, because root structures probably wouldn't take it, but you are planning on revegetation. The way I see this application, and again, it's a confirmation or whatever, is it's cleaning up the property. It's removing accessory structures that are probably shouldn't be there. It's putting in a new drilled well. It's putting in a septic as opposed to what currently exists. And so am I wrong to assume that this application actually from an environmental perspective is better than what currently exists?
Madeline?
Thank you. Through you, Chair Stone, I'll try to hit all of your points. So you are correct. The detached garage would be removed and all other accessory structures. So there is a privy currently, and there's a shed on a deck attached to the existing dwelling. Essentially everything on the property, and Thomas, you can correct me, but everything on the property would be completely redone in order to accommodate the new services proposed, the septic and the well, and also the location of the new dwelling. really nothing lends itself to being kept because areas are needed to accommodate services or the proposed dwelling. So it is a complete redo of what's there. The other element is the vegetation. So along that interior lot line, I did get confirmation after the report was posted that some of those trees will have to be removed. They are within the property boundary. The trees along Deer Lake Road, along the road allowance, those will be maintained. And Thomas has provided confirmation that he intends to put a vegetated buffer along that interior lot line to enhance that privacy. If I missed anything, let me know.
Just a quick
Follow up? Yep.
Just the last comment was from an environmental perspective. It would seem to me that the application actually improves the environmental.
Thank you. Through you, Chair Stone. That's correct. Yep.
Councillor Cluche.
Through your chair, Stone. One thing about I'm having a hard time with the 1.6 meters from the road allowance and the 1 meter from the back property line where the chain link fence side is. It's like, how much thought was putting into exactly where the house can go? Is this the absolute only place it can go, or can we get wider buffers? Like that's holding me up on this is the small 1.6 from the road. I mean, if a car goes off the road, he's going to end up in your bedroom. And like the back one, the chain link fence side, I mean, 1 meter is not a very far. Like we wouldn't allow that on a in-town property with sewer and water. 1 meter. So like it's I just have a hard time with the configuration and where this and why such small setbacks. I understand because of the size of the lot and the shape, but is there any way you could do it different?
Madeline?
Thank you. Through you, Chair Stone. I think I'll pass it to Thomas, but I do want to note that there's been a number of iterations with the proposal, and I think it came down to a servicing perspective. In order to service the property, I think this was really the only location for the dwelling to go, and it becomes really tight in that corner because of the triangular shape of the lot. But I will let Thomas speak on that too, just in case I'm missing anything.
Thomas?
Thank you for your concern, and it's a very valid statement. What I can do is I can put bollards in on the roadside to prevent any accidents of any kind potentially damaging this property. And this whole process was over 2 years long just to figure it out and give me the best place to live. And we're going to have a new well, we're going to have a new septic, and we're going to overall improve this property because as you can see from the pictures, it is a disaster. And I am a young person trying to build a house, and I made a mistake buying the property. I don't want to say that, but at the same time, I'm a new person to home ownership, and I've saved up a lot of money to come here in front of you guys to apply to the town and do this by the book. And as far as the setbacks on the corner you talked about, there's no dwelling that's right next to it. It's not like I can reach out the window and give the guy a handshake. And we will maintain a privacy buffer with native plants, native species that benefit the wildlife and everything. So, and we've got the hydro there. We're ready and set to go.
Follow up? Go ahead.
So it's good that with the backside for the growth and that. Just a thought, maybe fence. A wooden fence type of thing, that the privacy fence maybe might help, might appease the neighbors for their site and whatever. I know it's out in the country, but you know, it might just appease things between yourself and your neighbor.
Go ahead.
If I can speak on that, if we do put a fence in, that's going to require more removal of vegetative buffers. This way, a hedge growth by definition is very packed tightly with native plants, so it acts and intertwines like a vegetative fence. And as a person with a dog, I would like to have it fenced in anyways. So I'm perfectly happy with that idea as well. It's just be known that I would like to put back native species, native plants that's going to overall benefit the property and the look.
Thank you. And, Deputy Mayor Armour.
Thanks, Chair Stone. Very quickly, so what is the proposed construction process like? Are you going and ripping everything down, well going in, septic going and building? So what is that step going to look like? Because I believe there was mention of the well having, to put the well in, you had to cross the other piece of property or something. So I'm just wondering how you're going to get around that.
Okay, thank you. So before we are going to be getting issued a building permit, we're going to have to extend that driveway for the 30 feet, right? So we're going to be able to, and I talked to my well guy, and he's going to be able to drop that well as soon as my excavation guy demos the garage, the house, that privy, and any other services. So we're going to decommission that well. We're going to put a new drilled well in, and that will give us enough room to get on there. It's going to be approved. And I don't know if I spoke to everything.
Good? All right. Councillor Morrison.
Thank you, Chair Stone, and through you, it's, you know, on one hand, everyone knows we all want more housing and definitely smaller housing, so I commend you for trying to build a smaller home. I just worry a little bit, to Councillor Cloutier's point, 1 meter is not much, and it's not necessarily to the house. Like, the fact that you can't reach the house isn't the big deal, it's to the lot line. And what I worry about even more is, this owner is not the one that built the garage without a permit, so it was a previous owner that had done it. But I worry then about the forgiveness versus permission thing. And, you know, you find a property that has illegal buildings, you're like, well, I'm going to clean it up and get rid of those. So let's do all of these allowances that would never be allowed if an application came on a raw piece of land. So that's where I'm really struggling, is the fact that it's not even close to compliance. And I worry about that, okay, so I'm tearing down this old building, so maybe because I'm improving it, I should get all these allowances. I'm really struggling with that. So I guess to Madeline, if this application were to come, you mentioned on an existing lot, there are rules development can proceed if. Does this meet that intent, or is there, like, and secondly, if this raw land came today, would you consider an application on it?
Thank you for the
Madeline?
question. Through you, Chair Stone. If I understand correctly, so if this proposal was coming forward on this piece of property had already been vacant, yeah, so that the same criteria would apply, where they would have to demonstrate septic suitability, you know, general character with the surrounding area, servicing capability, a number of, I can go into more detail, but the one thing that this property should be viewed differently than just a vacant parcel is that there is a legal non-complying structure on it, which is the dwelling. So the garage is not being considered, and it's not a legal structure, but the dwelling does have legal non-conforming rights to it. So those existing setbacks are all legal, and the applicant could work within them if that was the proposal.
Thank you. You have a follow-up?
I guess just to follow to that, so technically today, the applicant could build on the current footprint and could go up and to get the square footage you need. And, but you still have to find a way to get a proper septic in, not a holding tank and a well and everything else. And from your research, I mean, it's been 2 years. Is that a possibility? Could you get a septic and a well on that property by building on the current footprint?
Thank you for the question. You could go up, but for me, an affordable house is a house that's very quaint and low to the ground. And I would think that my objection neighbor would appreciate it not being 2 stories high, because obviously, you know, he's up on a ridge more than 500 feet away, and he's going to look at this house and see me walking around in it. Now this way we can have a good screen. We have a very small, affordable house, and I think we should do it.
Thanks very much. I'm going to go to Manager Clark first.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Just a few things I'm noting, looking at the site plan, that might help with some of the comments that I've heard. So there is the notion that there is an existing structure there. So this is replacing an existing non-complying structure. And when we look at that, we kind of, as Madeline says, it has rights. So what are we changing to that existing structure, and how big are those changes? I think that's what you kind of have to think about. One of the things that you're pointing out is how close it is to the road. I just wanted to, looking at the plan, and I can bring it up for you, Madeline, if it helps, but the actual traveled portion of the road is not the same as the right-of-way. So there's actually a distance, I see a dimension on the plan of 8.6 meters between the corner of the house and the traveled portion of Deer Lake Road. So it's not like it's right next door. Not that the concern isn't valid, but it's not maybe as close as you think. And it does also appear that there is a chain link fence in that location also. And I think those are the things I wanted to point out, but I will bring, do you have a copy of the site plan with you? Okay. And just to clarify also, you wouldn't be able to go up with a non-complying building. You can't take your footprint and then add a second story. That would be an application in and of itself. You can't do that as of right. So I guess the option is, how are you going to redevelop this property? And if you can do it in a way that obviously won't offend the neighbors or cause off-site impacts, but also take an opportunity to improve the situation, which is, I think, what is being proposed to you right now. So,
Thank you. Councilor Schumacher.
Thank you. And Manager Clark probably answered most of my question. Is that, I guess, yeah, there is a building on there. It's been there since 1940. So we're going almost 100 years that building has been there, or 80 some odd years. So as of right, there is an ability to build there. I believe it was 78.5 and you're going up to 85.5. So now usually our ramification is like for like. Why? I believe I know the answer, Madeline, because you did kind of speak to it, because we are bettering the property, but why are we allowing for the discrepancy of the 78.5, which is the original footprint of the building, to go to the 85.5?
Madeline?
Thank you, Chair Stone. Yeah, I can speak to that. Essentially, it's just looking at the balance. There's a garage being removed, and I think it's more or less for an appropriate floor plan. So that, yeah.
And then just follow up. Yep. I'm kind of with Councillor Cloutier on the setbacks. I know it's not, and I know to Manager Clark point, close to the road, but if you have driven by there, it is on a corner, and your lights are going right into your living room window. And I get that, that's your choice. I mean, you're choosing to live there and how it sits, and that's the price. But yeah, I mean, his point is, if somebody goes off that corner, it could literally be into your property, which I've had somebody else recently show me pictures of cars going off their road into their ditch.
Councillor Morrison.
And just the last follow-up, now thanks to Richard for verifying that you can't really go up, but again, it's just the 1 meter setback I'm struggling with a little bit, because I know if I was on a property and all of a sudden an already really small setback of 1.8 meters was now going to 1 when 1.8 is already non-compliant, I'd struggle. And I think about whether it's 2 stories or 1 story with a loft. Like if you're building a 1,000 square foot home, it's cheaper to build 500 on top of 500 than 1,000 out. It's more affordable. But the other benefit of getting the square footage by adding a loft would be the poplar trees would not have to come down. You could actually retain more of the current vegetation. So that's sort of what I'd rather see, but I don't know, Madeline, if you could speak to that, if that would even be possible.
Madeline?
Thank you, through you, Chair Stone. Sorry, I just want to make the clarification. The existing interior side yard setback is 1.2 meters, and the proposed setback is 1.6. So they're trying to push the dwelling off the property line a little bit
Okay,
more.
thank you for that. I misread that.
Counselor Clark.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Stone. The non-conforming rights are an interesting point that I think has been clarified here today. So there are allowed property rights. There's on this location. There's no way around that. That's a given here. So I think the question really is, will the changes that are being proposed make the property better or worse? And that's the question that we have to answer here today.
Counselor Cluche?
Again, go back. So if, like, the back corner is 1.6, what we're talking about. If the house was taken and went parallel with the road, you're pulling away from the 1 meter at the back. Is that a viable option? If you turn the house, that it faces the road, the whole house, and so like, if we approve 1.6 meter for one corner, why can't we approve 1.6 or 3 meters or 2 meters from the road, just turning the house parallel with the road? So that it gives more in the back.
Madeline?
Through you, Chair Stone, I'm not sure if that's an option that the applicants have explored. However, it appears that the relief would still be required for that one corner. And then the orientation of the building could be altered. However, those setbacks, the relief is still required to be granted. So that the setbacks and the relief would be generally the same. But the orientation of the building could be shifted slightly. However, that may impact the location of the well and septic.
All right. Are there any other comments or questions from council? Counselor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Chair Stone, and thanks, Madeline, for the report. I guess we've established that there is building rights here, and we cannot remove those rights. That's the way it is. So it seems to me that if we restricted it to the size that's there, the impact is still the same. I think the only thing we can do at this point is ensure that privacy plantings are part of the equation in the end result. And I don't think that we've seen the well report yet, that it's feasible and doable. So that's a further requirement that I would ask for as well.
Madeline?
Through you, Chair Stone, I just wanted to advise that a motion has been prepared to add in the requirement that the site plan be amended to show a required vegetated buffer and or a privacy fence. So if that's something that council did want to include in the resolution, it's been prepared to do so.
All right. That only says privacy fence. I need to know whether you're interested in a vegetative buffer that would be planted as the applicant described, or a privacy fence. Both? Madeline?
Sorry, through you, Chair Stone, the option that's been prepared is an either or situation, one or the other, or both.
All right, it's not the amendment that I'm seeing here, so. Yes. So. Okay. So, before I go to the main motion, do I have a mover and seconder for an amendment that allows for a vegetative and or privacy fence along the lot line? So you will move that? Okay. A seconder? No seconder? Okay. So, moved by Mayor Alcock, seconded by Councillor Renwick. Be it resolved that the following condition be added to the second paragraph. A revised site plan be submitted to the satisfaction of the town of Huntsville to show a privacy fence and/or vegetative buffer along the interior lot line. Are there any comments or questions about the amendment? Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thanks, Chair Stone. It just occurred to me that maybe there's an expectation that council would reverse this decision, which I feel is something that legally we can't do. And if we had done this, that it would have gone to the OLT and would have cost the corporation and our taxpayers a lot of money. So I'm glad we're going this route.
All right, so we have the amendment. Councillor Morrison?
Yeah, just a comment on the amendment. I like that. I think, is it worth Madeline having a discussion with the neighbor to see what's preferable to the neighbor? Because I think it's a combination of the current applicant and the neighbor making sure it's suitable. And also then what is the check and balance on natural vegetative buffer to make sure it is suitable? Because it's not defined. Vegetative buffer to me could mean anything. So what is that? Is that defined to mean a certain height or a certain maturity of tree or something like that?
Madeline?
Thank you. Through you, Chair Stone. There would be an ability to discuss with the abutting neighbor, but it would happen after this meeting. So I think maybe the best alternative, and we can kind of work this out, but the best alternative for both the property owner and the abutting neighbor, coming to some sort of agreement on whether a vegetated buffer or a privacy fence or both would be the right solution. And then the second part of your question, for the vegetated buffer, we do collect a security deposit. So staff wouldn't be returning that security deposit until that vegetated buffer was established and satisfactory. If there was a benefit, we do have the privacy fence provisions that could also be followed. I guess it would determine whether or not only a privacy fence is being applied and if a vegetated buffer is also being added. It sounds like vegetation is something that the owner wants to add along that property line regardless. So whether or not there's a fence there as well, staff can do a more detailed review of that.
All right. So I'm going to call the question on the amendment. All in favor? All opposed? And that carries. So that amendment will be added to the main motion. The main motion is very long, but it's exactly as it's shown in our package, so I'm not going to read it. So with the amendment included, I'm going to ask for the main motion as amended. All in favor? All opposed? And that carries. We'll fix that up. Yeah. Good. All right. Thank you for that. We're now moving on. Kelsey's going to speak to the Knockelman application.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, the subject property is located at 28 Burnell Road. The property is within the urban residential shoreline designation of the official plan and within the urban residential shoreline precinct. The application has been submitted for the construction of a new 27 square meter dock addition with a 9 square meter shoreline deck and the reconstruction of 2 6 square meter docks. So I'll just point everything out here. So there's 2 docks that are existing, dock 1 and dock 2. What's proposed is this extension and the floating dock portion, as well as a deck constructed in between. So to facilitate this proposal, a class 3 council variation is required to increase the dock projection from 10 meters to 11 meters. Oops. The permitted dock projection is limited to 10 meters on the Muskoka River.
to ensure structures do not impact navigation, habitat, the natural flow of water, or disturb the natural landscape and terrain. Where an increased projection is proposed, a technical report is required to evaluate the most appropriate location for the dock on the property with respect to minimizing vegetation loss and habitat impacts. In this instance, there is an outlet to a stormwater drain from Burnell Road running under the property, which deposits sediment at the shoreline. So you could kind of see it here. So there's a storm drain and it deposits sediment underneath where these docks are. So the water depths around the north dock have been reduced as a result of the sediment. The dock addition and the requested 1 meter projection increase the proposed dock to achieve greater water depths for the north dock to improve functionality and allow for recreational uses, further recreational uses. Therefore, this variation is considered minor and is appropriate given this constraint. The property is also small and the existing development is wedged between Burnell Road and the Muskoka River. The existing dwelling has a legal non-complying setback of 4 meters, and this reduced setback prohibits the placement of a proper shoreline buffer being 15 meters. However, the proposal results in no further development of the shoreline and utilizes the existing space between the northern and southern docks in front of the dwelling. The property is also uniquely positioned on the Muskoka River at a curved point where it's wider at this part of the river. So this could accommodate the larger projection. A fish habitat assessment was also provided and prepared by Riverstone. This report anticipated no negative impacts provided the mitigation measures such as not further removing vegetation and planting vegetation where it can be accommodated, sediment fencing, and stockpiling materials for the dock away from the shoreline. Given that these are followed, they anticipate no negative impacts. Sorry. One letter of objection was received. It was circulated in accordance with the provisions of the community planning permit bylaw, and one letter was sent out just prior to this meeting. This letter noted concerns with the scale of development and the docks and non-compliance with the waterfront strategy for the town of Huntsville. Given the existing development on the property, staff did not feel that this development negatively reflected on the character of the shoreline and was appropriate for the property. Through staff's review and analysis, would appear to conform. The application would appear to conform with the intent of the official plan and be consistent with the provincial planning statement, and therefore staff would be recommending provisional approval. Thank you so much, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks very much. I'll call on the applicant or the representative if they wish to make any comments. Is there anyone online that will be speaking to this or not? No. All right. Then I'm going to go straight to council. Any comments or question, council? Deputy Mayor Armour.
Thanks, Chair Stone. The permanent docks, are they being, because this is the high water level when in the spring for flooding, et cetera. So how are they intending to address that with damage being done to those or the floating dock? Are they pulling it out?
Kelsey?
The applicant is here if she wanted to address this question, but yeah, I would imagine a lot of people have to take it out because they would be at risk of damage from the ice, but I'm not definite in that answer.
Any other comments or questions? Councillor Renwick.
Thank you, Chair Stone. In the drawing that was provided, you see where the two docks are, but you don't see where the sediment is. And I'm assuming that the sediment that's coming from Burnell is, if you're looking at the drawing that was provided, it's to the right of it. But it looks like when you look the top views of those two docks, it looks like there's a lot of sediment underneath there. Is that sediment from Burnell, all of it? Like that? Wow, okay. That's a lot of, but one of the docks looks like it's going to be on top of that area. Is that correct?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, I think we've had a lower water level overall this season, so it might not be indicative of every season it being that bad. But yeah, a lot of the washout comes from Bernallen deposits right out there. So there is an issue with the storm drain. It hasn't been protecting things, more debris from coming out. So that's something that we have to put in a request to be addressed. But should the docks be constructed, hopefully they could better withstand and achieve a better water depth to allow them to use this docking facility. Yeah.
Deputy Mayor Armour is a
Thank you. I'm just concerned about the construction phase of this dock. How's it going to be constructed? Is it on the current piers that are there? Or are they bringing in drilling rigs to drill down and put steel beam? I'm just curious because it doesn't really talk about how they're being constructed.
Kelsey?
Thank you for the question. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure on the exact construction and how it will be conducted. This is a provisional approval, so they still have to follow through the process of the rest of the community planning permit. So there are a couple of items that staff still need to address and were outlined in the report. For in-water works, there might also be a requirement for different jurisdictional permits. So if they're doing extensive, I believe there's an area that would call them into different permits for like DFO and such. So those might be needed if they were doing extensive in-water works, which are outside of our jurisdiction, but yeah.
All right, I see no other hands. All right, it is a lengthy resolution, and it's exactly as it is in your package. So I'm not going to read it. I'm going to call the question. All in favor? All opposed? And that carries. All right, and Kelsey, you're with us for the broadband application as well. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, the subject property is located at 31 Kitchen Street South. The property is within the urban residential designation of the official plan, and the property is within the development precinct with site-specific exceptions D23 and D24 with natural constraint to overlay. On September 10th of this year, Planning Council considered this application. A staff's initial review concerning these applications wasn't contained in the initial report. As noted in that report, the subject applications were submitted for the creation of an urban residential lot and to permit 28 unit development consisting of a mix of townhouses, semi-detached, and single detached dwelling units. The proposal has now been revised to include an increased setback to the natural features, such as the wetland and watercourses, and to amend the precinct solely to urban residential low. So you can see here the red and the blue identify where the watercourse and the wetland are. So there was originally a proposed 20-meter setback, so now that's been increased to 30 meters. So as this has been increased to 30 meters from the wetland and meets the CPP bylaw, a peer review for the scoped environmental impact assessment is no longer needed. The severed lands are also now intended to be developed with 17 lots for single detached dwellings. So relief from the reliefs previously listed in the site-specific exception are no longer required. The severed lot is still proposed to have an area of 2 hectares. With 20 meters of frontage along Kitchens Road South, and the retained lot is proposed to have an area of approximately 9 hectares with 80 meters of frontage along Kitchen Road South. It's worth noting that single detached dwellings are permitted in the urban residential low precinct. The proposed precinct is appropriate for the development of the 17 low density residential lots. However, the urban residential low precinct would limit 1 single detached dwelling at this time and permit only accessory structures. So before there's an additional application, it would only permit 1 dwelling and any permitted ancillary structures. And then a further application either with the town or with the District of Muskoka would be needed for the future proposal. As the revised proposal maintains the 30-meter setback, and there is a proposed conservation precinct to prohibit development within the identified hydrological features and their buffers. There will be a larger area that's preserved on the property. And so there will be a larger natural appearance of the lot. There was also concern about vehicular and pedestrian connectivity between the severed and retained lands. Upon further review, the location of the wetland and watercourses and the imposition of the conservation precinct around these features create a natural break for the proposed severed and retained lands, limiting connectivity to protect these features. As the current application is only for the creation of one urban residential lot, and the intended 17-lot development will require additional planning applications, there are further opportunities to address elements of neighborhood design, such as suitable functional open space and pedestrian connectivity within the future development with further planning applications. Following the September 10th Planning Council meeting, the author of the EIS also further reviewed the wetland on the adjacent lands, so on the property just to the north. And they provided a 30-meter setback from that as well, which will be within the conservation precinct. The further environmental assessment will be required of the placement of stormwater infrastructure within the future planning applications for the development of the severed lands. No development is currently proposed, but the conservation precinct ensures the protection of these features in accordance with the official plan. Sorry. The application was circulated internally in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. One letter of objection was received for the application. The objection details concerns regarding the further segmentation of the property, connectivity, environmental impacts to natural heritage features, as well as the density. The revisions to the proposal have addressed some of the density concerns by amending the precinct to urban residential low, as well as the increased buffers to wetlands in the conservation precinct address the environmental concerns. In view of the foregoing, the application would appear to conform with the intent of the official plan and be consistent with the provincial planning statement, and therefore staff would be recommending approval. Thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks very much. I'll call on the applicant or representative to speak to this if they wish. Is there someone online?
Chair Stone, I see no hands raised.
Please bring them in. We'll bring somebody in. Please. All right, I'll go to council. Councilor Renwick.
Thank you, Chair Stone. This is more of a comment, and I have a bit of a question at the end. But so the proposal has been scaled back from a larger townhouse plan to a smaller, low-density neighborhood of single homes, which is great. It also adds a stronger protection for wetlands in the natural area by keeping that 30-meter buffer, and it's setting aside some conservation space, which I think is great. But right now, the approval would only allow, as you said, Kelsey, as one lot. And so for any future builds, or to build out the 17 homes, they'd have to go through another round of applications as well as public input. So will there be more opportunity for the community to get involved if they wanted to, if they felt like they wanted to? So that was my question.
Kelsey?
Thank you for the question, through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so they would likely either require a subdivision application or a condominium application. So that would be the public process, which the district oversees. And then there might be, through that process, a requirement for a community planning permit, in which case, depending on the level, there would be, there would be public input, or it would just be a staff approval, depending on if they're meeting all the requirements of the bylaw. Yeah.
Yep. To follow up, so today we're just looking at the creation of a single lot, correct? We're not looking at anything else beyond that.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. Yeah, as it's the creation of a single lot, we wanted to see this exercise of what they were looking to do with the land, just because it is a development precinct, and those are usually larger swath of land that there's more potential for further development. So we just wanted, it was an exercise to prove that they had the space needed, as well as it identified the environmental features. So that was an important component to put those in a conservation precinct.
Deputy Mayor Armour.
Thanks, Chair Stone. Thanks for the report. When I'm looking at the map here, and it shows the 17, I assume these are the 17 units they want to put in. Where's the actual lot that we're approving in that 17 units? And are they putting in a condo road, or is it going to be a road that the town's going to assume responsibility of once completed?
Kelsey?
Thank you. If I could go back to the sketch, I could show the entire, yeah. And then, we don't know what type of road's currently proposed. They just kind of showed what could be there just to prove that everything could fit in. Yeah. But I don't know if people can, yeah. So the lot would be, you could see the lot line goes around. Sorry, it's not the easiest way to see it, but it is
If I
essentially,
may, Chair, so the entire thing is the lot.
yeah,
All right,
exactly.
thank you
Sorry,
for-
that's
thank you
great.
for that.
Yes.
Perfect. Councillor Clark.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Stone. I guess just a comment, but I continue to be concerned about the large amount of debris on this property. It's been brought up before. I brought it up at the last application here. I know it's not part of this application, but I want to make sure that it remains on the record that that's outstanding.
Is there something we can do about the property standards issues?
Thank you for the question. Yeah, we continue to have discussions with the property owner, and the application, I think it was a year or 2 years ago, about consolidating all the items that are on the property. So we've been communicative, and bylaws been involved throughout that process. And I think with each application, we're trying to make sure that that continues to be communicated to the owner.
Councillor Cluche.
Through you, Chair, I think the applicant should know, I think in the bylaw, that if this turns into a residential lot, all that stuff on the property has to be taken away. Like not consolidated into one corner. It has to be removed off the property, so.
Go ahead, Kelsey.
Yeah, so the retained lot has those areas shown for where outdoor storage is still permitted. None of those areas for outdoor storage are on the proposed severed lands. It's only on the retained lands. So the ownership might be changing, and those are only on the retained lands where that outdoor storage would be permitted, not on this newly created lot.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions? Anybody else? No? We've got two. Moved by Councillor Morrison, seconded by Councillor Schumacher. Be it resolved that Planning Council approve Community Planning Permit Bylaw Amendment Application CPPA 18, 2025 HTE. The purpose and effect of which is to change the precinct on the lands from a development precinct to an urban residential low precinct and a conservation precinct to permit the creation of one very large urban residential lot. Comments or questions? All in favor? And that carries. Moved by Councillor Morrison, seconded by Councillor Schumacher. Be it resolved that Planning Council provisionally approve consent application B14 2025 HTE for the creation of one new urban residential lot, conditional on the registrable description of the severed lot being submitted to the Secretary Treasurer along with a registered copy of the reference plan, the owner's taxes being in good standing, site inspection fee of $272 being paid to the town of Huntsville, a consent finalization fee in the amount of $250 being paid to the town of Huntsville, and 5% cash in lieu of parkland being paid to the town of Huntsville on the severed lands. Comments or questions? Councillor Runwick.
Thank you, Chair Stone. A very quick question, but the Secretary Treasurer, is that just not the clerk? Is that, do we change that out? Because usually it says the clerk as opposed to Secretary Treasurer.
Thank you, Chair. It is the clerk. Yeah.
All right. All right, that's good. Any other comments? All in favor? And that carries. All right, we're going to take a 10-minute break. All right, welcome back, everyone. Height and density, we're all excited. We got the big presentation last time, so I'm going to leave it to Kelsey and Madeline to bring us back up to speed.
Great. Well, thank you again, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon again, Council. Madeline and I are here again to provide a summary of the height and density evaluation criteria that was originally presented at last meeting. Please note that the report and presentation are to seek further direction for the required amendments and the public consultation, which are the next step of this project, and implementation is not currently proposed. It is also important to reiterate the impetus for this criteria. The town continues to receive applications for increased height and density within the urban settlement area with limited tools for evaluation of these proposals. The tools outlined in the report and presentation are to address this issue and to achieve balanced growth while preserving the town's natural beauty. We look forward to your further direction and discussion for this project following our presentation.
So today's presentation will provide an overview of, for clarification purposes. We'll start by outlining our current practices, note some feedback and what we've heard since our last presentation, and provide overviews of some of the deliverables.
So Huntsville currently regulates building height and density through the community planning permit bylaw and utilizes the CPP process to review and refine development proposals. The bylaw also includes provisions for allowing height and density in exchange for provisions of certain community benefits associated with the development proposal. The CPP bylaw review, relevant standards and policies and the site dynamics are considered in relation to the proposal to ensure potential negative impacts resulting from the development proposal can be avoided or mitigated. The as of right permissions are outlined on the slide as well as the variation limits for your reference. Discussion about impacts, mitigation measures, and community benefits are always contextual to our application process and require extensive staff review and attention to ensure the preservation of views, landscape, and character.
Since our presentation last month, we've had the opportunity to hear from a number of you. Overall, we gather that there's general support for adding hill crowns into our mapping, adopting the proposed performance standards, landscape and visual impact study terms of reference document, the landscaping standards and revegetation guide, and the public consultation strategy. We also gather that there was clarification required for the proposed height definition and community benefit guideline options, as well as additional discussion required for the suitability mapping, variation limits, and as of right permissions, which we will get into in the following slides. We also understand the parcellated map appeared to be preferable due to ease of implementation. However, the identification of showing low, medium, and high suitability for specific properties requires further comment. Also, we heard hesitation for providing as of right increases, but also support for increases when it relates to development of long-term rental and affordable housing. Collecting community benefits was noted as a priority, and opening the door to as of right permissions that would remove this requirement was not generally preferred. It was also noted that hiring a consultant to provide community benefit rate would be a preferred approach to ensure less negotiation on staff's end and upfront values for developers to consider. Also, the proposed 18-meter height may be too large of an increase from the current 11-meter maximum. So just recapping some of the thoughts that were heard over the last month. And I just wanted to point out the image on the screen as a reminder of what our criteria has been developed to do. A very simple graphic, but essentially, this criteria is to incorporate development into our existing landscape, preserve the characteristics that make Huntsville so unique, and accommodate development in the most appropriate locations. So just a little reminder.
Thank you. Before we chat about the height definition, we wanted to thank Ronan Green. Ronan was a co-op student from the building department for the spring and summer of this year, and he created the diagrams and images for this project, such as the one in front of you. We appreciate all the visuals he created as they effectively show the impacts of these proposed policies, and he also created the one on the slide before. As previously noted, the term height means the vertical distance measured from the average finished grade on the side of a building facing the front lot line or the exterior lot line, whichever results in the greater height, to a specific point on the roof, and this depends on the roof style. Unfortunately, this definition is has known limitations when it comes to building larger buildings on properties with varied terrain, with significant grading alterations associated with the larger development are proposed. So this has resulted in true height not being represented, as you can see illustrated on screen. So the front, it looks like it's a 3-story building, but it's actually a 4-story building.
So bringing that into a local context, we just wanted to, the next 2 slides just show examples of current development in and around Huntsville. We wanted to show a mix of properties that are on varied topography as well as topography that's generally flat. So the top 2 examples are actually buildings that are height compliant but are on flat level properties. So the impact is generally the same from either side of the building, whereas the bottom 2 are buildings where height relief was required for an increase and are on varied terrain, so impacts from different angles of the building are different. Another example is shown on the slide here, where grade has been altered, so height of the buildings is compliant from a current bylaw perspective, but due to the alterations, the true impact of height is more significant than if it were on a flat and level property. So just a reminder that the height definition that we are proposing is to apply to only multi-residential and mixed-use development, so it wouldn't be applied to single detached dwelling, and is essentially to reflect that true height and ensure we know really the impact of the proposed increase.
Sorry. To do an overview of the mapping as well, the suitability mapping options were created to show where increased height and density are most appropriate. To create the mapping, staff first surveyed the public on significant views, and 23 views were identified and mapped. From this information and town policies, 3 component maps were then developed, which consist of policy constraints, height constraints, and opportunities that contribute to the final maps, being those 3 in the purple square. Madeline will provide a further overview of the items included in each of these component maps.
Thank you. So this slide just recaptures the various layers that went into the policy constraints component map. And just as a reminder, this map has both absolute policy constraints where development is not currently permitted and where increases to height and or density is typically not considered or suitable, and semi-policy constraints, which include those features that require further consideration. Next is just a reminder of the heights constraints component map, which is a unique map to Huntsville for our urban settlement area, as it used 3D models of Huntsville's terrain along with viewpoint data derived from the Significant Views Survey to establish the layers within this map. And then our opportunities component map, which use data that is reflective of factors that promote or support development potential from a height and density perspective.
Great, and this resulted in the 3 final maps. So this is the granular map, which is the accurate raw data, which shows like a point on a property that is more or less suitable. So this is considered the most accurate, but considered more difficult for implementation from a policy perspective. The next is the parcellated map, which is divided up into 4 categories, being not suitable, low suitability, medium suitability, and high suitability. So this is gives you a wide spectrum of information on suitability, and allows for implementation as well as reviews it at a property level, so you could see suitability to that scale. And then the final one is only the highly suitable areas. So this is just taking where the green part out of that last map and only showing where height and density are most suitable. So those were our 3 options for the mapping.
Moving on to as of right permissions and maximum variation limits. Previously, staff proposed 4 options for as of right permissions and variation limits, which utilize the data derived in the suitability mapping. The 4 options have been summarized on the slide, and amongst them include differences of where as of right permissions are applied, when variation standards apply, and permissions that only apply to particular types of development. As of right permissions would allow more applications at a staff level and encourage applicants to work within the new standards, but would not require community benefits to be provided. Alternatively, increasing variation limits would provide staff with increased review authority while still requiring a community benefit component. Applications exceeding variation limits would still be brought to council for review and decision.
The next overview we wanted to provide was regarding the community benefits. Staff outlined 2 options for community benefits. The first option was to include provisions that require cash in lieu contributions for facilities, matters, and services in exchange for additional building height and density, as well as a list of exemptions and a process permitting alternative in-kind contributions. With this option, additional funds would be needed from the Planning Policy Reserve to complete the economic analysis to establish the percentage of affordable housing units and the required cash in lieu value for affordable housing units based on the local development context. And the second option was to prepare a guideline document detailing the process for negotiating each type of community benefit with relevant internal departments. Through consultation with internal departments, this approach would help secure facilities, services, and matters through cash in lieu or in-kind contributions that are of strategic importance for the community. So the first option, as I referenced in the report, we utilized a lot of the materials found in other communities with CPPs that are also doing similar policies. So it basically shows the requirements for each level of CPP, being the class 2 and 3, and no community benefits for the class 1. But the area where we need the economic analysis is figuring out the percentage of affordable units that would be adequate for our local context. And this kind of lays it out nicely for developers so they can be aware that this would be a requirement from the outset and it would limit negotiation. There's also the Provincial Affordable Residential Unit Bulletin, which kind of already sets a rate for affordable units and rental units, and that's updated yearly. So a lot of these policies, they just integrate this known information. So that's already been provided in that first option, and where the detail is needed is for what's the cash in lieu amount. So that's the needed piece of that first option is just that analysis piece, whereas all the other work has been done for that option based on the research that we've already done for other communities. So those are the options for the community benefit.
And that's the overview we got. So we'll open it up to some questions and discussion, and happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you for listening.
Are there any questions, council? Oh, boy. Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Chair Stone. So not really questions, just comments. So my biggest concerns around as of right permissions and that are in deliverable 3. So I'm just going to spell it right out here. So I'm not going to support as of right permissions in any area, in any circumstance. So I can't really support the mapping other than the hill crowns, because I don't support a lot of what's in deliverable 3. One of the major concerns I have is that this deliverable is going to take away could take away my ability to see applications come here. And especially if staff are approving most of them or some of them. And I want to be able to vote on all the applications that are important to my constituents. And these applications are going to be very important to our constituents. So that's my one of my major concerns on that. And a last comment, I guess, just is, you know, I know some here think that we need to go up for the future as we grow and change and plan for the future. And I'm not opposed to change or growth, but I guess I'd say I'm opposed to the extreme. And in my mind, which would be a future with widespread 4- and 5-story development throughout Huntsville.
All right, thanks for that. Mayor Alcock.
Thank you, Chair Stone. I might as well go after Councillor Clark. It's funny, I don't necessarily disagree with everything Councillor Clark is saying. I just want to put it out there. And I think that the last discussion we had was a very good discussion, and all of the work that you did helped us have that discussion. So, and I appreciate that you made reference to these comments that you had heard from a lot of people around council, and I remember the feeling when we had the discussion before that I'm not sure I really like that losing control feeling either. But then I went back to it and thought, okay, if I just look at the green plan, which is the areas which are highly appropriate. I don't know how much time we've spent around those areas, but I think as a rule, I believe in how you define those areas. If you look at arterial roads, walkability and you know, bus shelters, all of that stuff. So generally, I think I support the fact that we have areas that have been identified as highly appropriate. I did struggle with the idea of, as of right, 18 meters. The 5 stories. I know we asked for that and we had to look for that, and we have been asked for 5 stories. So I think it was important to look at. I think that many of our, well, a number of our applications are actually asking for 4 stories, and 4 stories are, they're doable from a development perspective. And I'm more comfortable with 4 stories. It's not a big leap from 11 meters to 15 meters. So that would be the first change I would think. If I was to support as of right, would I support in the green areas 11 meters to 15 meters to that 4 stories? And I think I would, but I still think that I'm trying to balance in the back of my head a recent developer saying, we just need clarity. We need clarity and we need to be able to do whatever we want. So I'm not of the ilk of we get to do whatever we want, but I do get the fact of clarity. I need clarity what I can and can't do. And if I am not doing what I'm supposed to do, then I need to go to X in order to get there. And right now we don't have as much of that. It's sort of a crapshoot. You come to council and maybe we support you and maybe we don't. So I like the idea of some criteria. And so I'm back to what I like, 4 stories in the green areas. But I also think that it isn't something that should be an automatic right without a community benefit. And that was argued quite, that was a major point of contention in the last debate around an application. And I think that we're actually looking at all of this policy because we truly believe in the importance of community benefit. For us, having more affordable housing, having more rental housing is one, having more affordable housing is really critical. So I think that I've moved. It feels like a baby step, but I think I would support, as of right, 15 meters if there's a community benefit. And then that makes the concept of having a guideline done by a consultant, whoever, that defines what those community benefits. I'm not suggesting that if you provide a park bench, that's it, you get your 4 stories. I think it has to be a substantial community benefit, and we need to define what that is. So that's, I think, as far as I have gotten. And the other thing, in a discussion I had with staff, for the most part, does this mean, let's say we did agree to 4 stories with the community benefit, chances are we're looking at the applications anyway. Because what applications have come forward where they don't require some sort of exemption or exception or whatever? We have to look at them anyway. Just because they've fulfilled maybe a new height policy, well, that doesn't mean they're meeting all of the setback requirements and parking requirements and all of the other things. So the chances of us actually not seeing a 4-story application are slim to none, in my view. So I'm looking at it at a risk level, and I think why does it matter? Because I actually think it provides a little bit more certainty for people who are trying to do that. And everything outside of that, if you're not providing a community benefit, that's what you want, you come to council. If you want to go to 5 stories and you say it's all going to be affordable, you still come to council because it's above the 4-story. So it's really, in my mind, that's where I've been able to take that baby step.
I'll just make a quick comment that I agree with you that in the green areas that have been identified for height, it's very much an oxymoron for us to say these are the areas where you can get more height, but we're still only allowing you to do 11. Well, it's appropriate that we say 1 more story is appropriate in these areas. We've identified where 4 stories is appropriate. And I do agree with the mayor that 5 stories is a step too far for me at this point, and many control in every specific instance. Councillor Clark.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Stone. So let's just talk about 4 stories for a minute. I don't know if all of us have really decided whether or not 4 stories is appropriate or not. I don't think I certainly haven't. But I would say that when I think about applications that have come here involving 4 stories, I can tell you, and everybody sitting in this room will tell you, that those were difficult applications. And why were they difficult? It's because they were all in established neighborhoods. And I think a lot of the green on that map is in established areas. The end result is that those neighborhoods are changed dramatically. So I think there has to be a very careful balance between growth and protecting existing neighborhoods. And despite all the checks and balances in this policy, I just don't know if it's going to be enough to protect those established neighborhoods.
Any other comments? Councillor Morrison.
Thank you, Chair Stone. I echo Mayor Alcock's comments about the suitable locations and incorporating the community benefit. And I just, I don't want the community benefit to be such a deterrent that the buildings don't get built either. So we got to find a good balance there. And sometimes the building itself is the community benefit. So for instance, we need 100 people for Fairburn housed, a building of 4 stories near Fairburn. That's a community benefit to me. I don't think I'd need an extra community benefit on top of that. So it doesn't always have to be something extra. It could be that the building itself is good. The 2 areas I love, again, I love all the work that you guys put into this, love the report. The 2 areas I'm struggling with a little bit is the landscape provisions. Again, we heard about trying not to make it too complicated, certainty, and I mean, we're doing a CPP review to try and make everything more streamlined. And I don't know if we need to add extra landscape provisions on top of a 3-story building. So like if it's a 3-story building, there's this, and if it's going to be 4 or 5-story, we might want more landscape requirements. I don't know if you can speak to that. And I know it's in here and I read it over, but is there rationale on top of a 3-story landscape plan, and why would we want more?
Through you, Chair Stone, I can answer that. So essentially, the rationale for increased landscaping standards was if we're increasing the buffer, we're pushing that higher development, more dense development further from abutting properties while also providing a significant vegetated buffer. A lot of the landscaping standards it's geared around preserving the mature vegetation that's already on site. And if there is a lack thereof, there would be a revegetation guideline to outline specifically for developers to know this is the expectation of what we'd expect to see within these landscape buffers. But essentially, the intention of an increased buffer is to distance the development and provide a smoother transition.
Yeah, and I guess I just, like if I'm looking at a 3-story building versus a 4-story building, unless you're planting way more mature trees, I don't know if it accounts for the extra story. It's just more buffer for the building regardless of the height, right? It's still going to be landscaping. But and the other issue I'm having maybe is with the redefinition of height. I get it if we look at the Summit development, you know, you can see that big retaining wall. So I guess a question maybe for you, Kelsey, if you look at the pictures of the development on the Summit development, of course they have the big retaining wall. So from the road, it's of course meets the height requirement, or maybe with a variance. And from the back, with the new rules, would you measure it from that retaining wall, or would you measure it from the bottom of the retaining wall?
Yeah, thank you. It's the lowest grade, natural or finished. So in that case, the lowest finished grade is the road, so it would be from the road. So that's something like we've had in the past where people find loopholes in our policies to basically create another story or more height, or where people have significant grading that they do to make it compliant. So you can see it results in quite an impact from the road because it is to finished grade. So yeah, we'd be trying to eliminate that, but it would be from the lowest, whatever results in the highest height. Yeah.
Think to that, and I think there's an issue with doing it as a blanket redefinition, because if you look at a property like that where the back of the property goes down to another road, as opposed to, let's say, Paisley Avenue, or even the Tom, those buildings up there, it's a bit different. It comes down to a road, but it's a little bit different. Like for instance, Paisley, you come down and it's just in the bush. So if we took it from the lowest grade there, it's a totally different animal than Summit or some of these other properties. So then you might end up getting 1 story less when it's not really impacting anybody's views because it's actually down into a valley. So I would prefer to keep the definition of height as it is, because it's been that way, and it's ends up making it more complicated, because then you have one property that slopes into a valley, one property that slopes down to a road, and I think it just gets too complicated for me.
It's quiet all of a sudden. Deputy Mayor Armour.
Thanks, Chair Stone. I just want to say I really echo what the mayor said. I think she's really put a lot of thought into this, and with her background into planning, et cetera. And I think about a building that's currently in Huntsville that's 5-story. It's the Hilton Home 2. That's a 5-story building built into a hill. But you drive by that, you never know that's 5 stories. So I think as Councillor Morrison said, it's where it's built. And that's the whole idea behind the green map. It's showing us where it's going to be built. And we can actually do diagrams, and actually 3D diagrams, to see how it's going to impact. And understand what Councillor Clark is saying about current residential areas and large buildings going in. But I think this is a really good start. And great report. Sorry I missed the last planning meeting. I did watch it online. Lots of good questions. But I like where this is going, and I could support Mayor Alcock in this.
Councillor Schumacher.
Yeah, I've kind of listened to everything around the table. I guess to Councillor Clark's point, I guess I'm just looking at, and I'm trying to figure out on the map where it is, like, we had a recent fire across from the Legion, and say that corner of the area there on West is vacant now. Somebody wants to go in, it's green, according to this map. It would look like it's green. So somebody, as of right, if they wanted to go in with the 4-story community benefit, that would not come before council. Yet to me, to Councillor Clark's point, I would not want to see something in there, in that location as a 4-story building, but it's in the green area. So that's where I'm kind of struggling with. I like that we have the green areas, but I do, to Councillor Clark's point, some of the green areas are not where I would consider suitable to put a 4-story building because of the already existing area.
Madeline?
Madeline?
Thank you. Thank you for the question through you, Chair Stone. I think that's a great observation and a great point. And I think it's also, there's an added layer. Just because the permissions may be there doesn't mean a property may be suitable to use them in terms of the lot area, the lot configuration may not lend itself available to being able to provide a 4-story building and provide parking and amenity space for development of that nature. So I think that is something to consider for more of the smaller in-town properties that in a singular way on their own, they wouldn't be able to accommodate that type of development. So that's just the point I wanted to clarify.
Councillor Renwick.
Thank you, Chair Stone. So just further to what Councillor Schumacher just said, then, in our policies now, you're saying that staff would be able to identify the fact that that property is not suitable for a 4-story building. Is that within that's within our CPP right now, that that would not be a suitable location, even though the mapping potentially could say that it is?
Go ahead.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, so this is just another layer of, it's another tool for us to use. So that property, and I might be wrong, it's probably urban residential low. So to be suitable to create a higher density development, it would still have to go through an amendment process. But what the mapping is telling us is that given all of our mapping that we did, the views that we are considering, the amenities around that property, it would make it more suitable, but doesn't mean it doesn't have other processes it has to go through. So it's just another tool in our toolbox to utilize. So we're not always playing a guessing game of, well, this 5-story building, will it impact views? And we try to do as many things as we can, but this is just another layer of suitability, yeah.
And thank you, Chair Stone. If I may just follow up as well, and it comes down to the mapping portion of it, and I did speak to Richard about this, that initially I really did like the green map because it showed you exactly where the views were and where, there was suitability for building. But I think I've changed my mind that I would prefer to see in our policy that it's this map, the map that has everything, because it has where you can build, where you can't build, absolutely not the red areas, but then that sort of in-between area as well. So I think it's really important that we don't just look at the green areas, but we say, okay, we definitely know, even as a developer could say, well, you're never going to put something there. So I think it's really important that you see the full picture and not just the green areas. So that's just one portion of that. So.
Mayor Alcock.
Thank you, Chair Stone. Through you, I actually just want to respond to what Councillor Renwick said. I couldn't agree with you more on that. I think it's really important that we show in the mapping the crowns that we say, no, absolutely not, right? These areas, absolutely not. Don't even think about it. I mean, everybody can think about anything at any time, but it's probably going to be, I just focused on the green area because that's where I had my change in policy. And I agree with Councillor Morrison that if someone said it's a four-story all affordable housing, that's the benefit. There's no question. It's not like, and now do this, right? So I think our guideline, our community benefit guideline, whatever that document is really important, right? Because that will provide clarity as well.
I'm just going to ask a question about the $15,000 to find what is a community benefit. And so can you talk to me about if that's actually needed, or can we identify those things ourselves?
Thank you for the question. Yeah, we've tried to do it as economically as possible. Like we've looked at all the other jurisdictions who have this type of policy and basically taken them and adjusted them to our context. We looked at like the pro forma analysis needed to do find those missing pieces, and it would be hard for somebody without none of us in our department have an economic background in terms of that type of analysis. So for us to do that, it might not be beneficial or accurate. So it's best to leave that part to the professionals, we thought, as a department. So that's just the missing piece. The rest of it has been done, and it's just filling in those numbers. And there is exceptions for community benefits listed in there. So like one of the ones that we were looking at was an exception if it is an affordable housing building or an all rental building. So those have already been factored into the proposed direction for that option.
Councillor Morrison.
Yeah, and I agree with that. It doesn't even have to be all affordable, just all rental would have a massive impact, right? Because the only way prices come down is if we have more units. And even if they were being sold, people can't afford to buy homes right now. And if there was another 40 built or 50 built, then prices inevitably do come down. So I don't know if we need to spend $15,000 though. I have a struggle with that. If I'm thinking it's going to be an outside consultant coming back with a report that then we have to critique and decide what a community benefit is suitable for our town. I'm not sure. I also don't want to put that on you guys after you've already put 4,000 hours into this report and it's well done. So I don't know. I'd struggle with that one a bit.
Well, there is the question. So the mayor mentioned it earlier. Oh, well, we'll give you a park bench over there. Well, so, and then our staff had to defend that and say, no, that's not enough. We need more rental units or whatever it takes. So we need some guidelines to actually target to say, here's the value, and we need to agree that that's appropriate. And what is that? It's not a park bench.
Yeah, and I wonder if that discussion is more appropriate around this table as opposed to an outside consultant not from our town. Like, we're going to be the ones that determine what's an appropriate community benefit. And around here, we could all agree that it's not a park bench, but there's other stuff that would be. I don't know.
I'm going to go to Richard Clark.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. So just to remind Council that this particular recommendation is about not only providing certainty to us as the planners who are helping review these files, but it's also about providing certainty to a developer who might be looking at purchasing a property and thinking about what it would cost to develop that property, and if they were to go an extra floor, what would that mean in terms of the community benefit that they might be on the hook for. So right now, there is nothing. So basically, the way we would do it is they would have to go ahead and buy that property. They would have to, or do a pre-consultation. We would talk about if they wanted to go up, what would the community benefit likely be? We have absolutely no guidance. So it usually is a negotiation, a consultation with other departments to talk about what that could be. And then as has already been pointed out, are we getting enough of a community benefit? So without guidance, it really is a very clunky process. So what we're trying to do with coming up with a rate is you can still negotiate if you want to. We can still deal with you and figure out from our other departments what would be an appropriate community benefit. But there's also an easier way if you choose to take it, and that's that we have a set rate for what the community benefit could be, so that you know it up front, we know it up front, and should you choose to take that option, you could just pay that cash in lieu almost. So that's what this one's about. All of the other municipalities that have looked at using the community planning permit system to try and incentivize affordable housing and rental housing and higher density in and around transit hubs, they've looked at making sure that if they're going to be incentivizing height, that they're also putting the work in to figure out what the rate would be. And it's not a long process. It's just, it does involve land economics, and we don't have the expertise to do it.
Okay,
Yeah,
Councillor
just follow up
Morrison?
to
Yep.
that. So I misspoke and I apologize. I agree with all that. I wasn't saying that it comes to the table every application. I was thinking that around this table was where we define and give you the guidance on the community benefit on what we would deem acceptable. So I wasn't, that's where I misspoke. I think as opposed to paying somebody $15,000 to determine and then us having to critique it and decide what goes into the guidance, I think a discussion or a special meeting here would save the town 15 grand and we come up with something pretty suitable that we think is good.
Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thanks, Chair Stone, and great conversation, great comments coming around. I think defined benefits for potential development, affordable development, is absolutely the direction we should go in. I don't believe that we have the expertise around this table to determine that is. As Richard commented, there's a lot of land economics in there. And let's face it, developers are becoming more sophisticated. They're down to every single penny. And if they know coming into it, that makes a project more viable and more attractive to them right at the onset. So right away, we become more attractive. We become more of a desirable market for those things to happen because we're better prepared to help them with the process. So I believe that it's money well spent and that we'll reap the rewards from it. You know, I've been fortunate in bigger centers, but worked on community benefit rewards and have done historical restorations, and libraries and women's shelters, all kinds of things that have been such an immense benefit to the community. So this is something we need to pursue, and I really don't think that we have the in-house expertise to do it. We can't do everything.
Yeah, I agree. And the developers have told us they want clarity. Tell us what is possible and what it's going to cost. Deputy Mayor Armour.
Thanks, Chair Stone. Just on the community benefit aspect, I think one thing we can look at is where the development's being placed. So if it's being placed in an area of a sports field, there's your community benefit, adding something to our sports field. West End, that right now with the building going down, the community benefit is Avery Beach, adding something to Avery Beach. So I think that's something we could look at to define what the community benefit will be. And I think we need to be prepared moving ahead because younger people nowadays aren't really that interested in home ownership anymore because the cost, the mortgage payments and interest and all that, the value. They're looking at rentals and they have a set price of this much money a month comes out of their pocket and the rest is through play money to do what they want to do. So I think we need to be prepared moving ahead and work with the developers to, as I say, it gets cheaper going up. So, and the more you get, as Councillor Morris said, we'll bring the prices down to where we would like them to be.
All right, lots to think about. Well, all right. All is constant in the universe, all ebb and flow, and every shape that's born bears in its womb the seeds of change. And Huntsville is no different. We have all heard from our constituents how they're concerned that our municipality is changing and is changing quickly. This document, it not only allows for some height in certain areas, but it protects us. It protects those things that make Huntsville, Huntsville. And this sets us up well for the future because we are growing and it's inevitable. So let's protect those things that we love so much, and this does that job. Any other comments? Please.
I don't have a fancy saying like Councillor Stone. Sorry. I guess for me, I just would say I do agree with some of what's in the policy. There's a lot of work that's been put into it around different things, landscaping and whatnot. But I guess I would say I disagree with about as much of the policy as I agree with. And that's where I'm at with this policy. And I still maintain that, I have fundamental issues with as of right permissions and the green mapping areas. I have a fundamental issue with that. And I'm not sure that it does protect Huntsville the way that I would like to see it.
All right, so I'm not seeing a lot of hands go up. We do have an amendment that speaks to what Mayor Alcock proposed to, in the green areas, allow 4 stories as a right with community benefits. I'm going to, Mayor Alcock will move that, and I'll need a seconder, if there is one, to put that on the table. Deputy Mayor Armour? Okay. So there is the main motion as it was shown in your package, and here is an amendment. Moved by Mayor Alcock, seconded by Deputy Mayor Armour. Be it resolved that under development number 3, deliverable number 3, the following paragraph be inserted following option 3.1b. As amended, to maintain all existing height and density provisions, except a note will be added to affected precincts to indicate that the maximum permitted building height will be 15 meters within high suitability areas where a suitable community benefit is provided. And under that, and further that, under deliverable number 6, option 6.1 be struck out and replaced with 6.1a. Mayor Alcock.
Thank you, Chair Stone. So I want to echo or reiterate one more time that when you read that, it looks like, well, it's as of right. They get to proceed with their 4-story building if they've got that community benefit, whatever that is. But I think it's very important to remember what we were told by both Madeline and Kelsey, that to respond to a couple of questions and good questions that were raised about, well, what if they decided to propose a building in a high suitability area on the property where the house burned down? Well, they still have to go. This is one layer of the onion. That's it. So they still have to meet all of the other bylaw restrictions, requirements under our current CPP. So if that means parking and setbacks, and we can list all of the things. If it's not suitable from all of those other things, it doesn't go anywhere. It just means that it's suitable for 4 stories. If it meets everything else, right? So I think it's really important. I have to remind myself of that. So, but yeah, like I said.
Councillor Fitzgerald.
Sometimes you save me a lot of talking going first. Thank you for that. I can't agree anymore. I think sometimes we forget that we still have the CPP, the OP, everything else in place. That is a requirement of the application. So we're streamlining the process, one step in the process. We've protected areas that shouldn't have this done, and we've highlighted areas that we think it's possible if the proposals meet the other requirements.
Councillor Morrison.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Stone, or Chair Stone. I love so much of this report, as you know, I've made that clear many, many times, but for me, there are so many moving parts in this report, so many different things being considered at once, that I find it impossible for me to improve all of the deliverables. You know, when we talk about the landscape and then the height, new definition on height, and then the consultant for the benefits, and then there's this, like it's so much that I just can't vote in favor today, even though I do want more height in certain areas. So, I mean, we'd be another 3 hours debating every single thing down to the tooth. So I don't know if that's appropriate either, but that's where I'm at now. There's too much for me to really give a positive vote. Doesn't mean I don't like what's been done, but it's just where I'm at.
Any other comments on the amendment? Then I will ask the question. All in favor? All opposed? And that carries. All right. Before I go to the main motion as amended, are there any other discussions? I see none. Then I will ask the question. The main motion as amended. All in favor? All opposed? And that carries. Yes. Director Maxwell.
Thank you, Chair Stone. This has been a really interesting conversation, and I thank everyone for all of the thought they put into it. I just wanted to remind everybody that this is direction for staff to take the next steps and do public consultation on the proposed options that have been brought forward. So it will be back a few times, I think, before we get to the final stage.
All right, I have a motion. Moved by Councillor Renwick, seconded by Councillor Cloutier. Be it resolved that Confirmation Bylaw 2025-118 be received and passed this 12th day of November 2025. All in favor? And that carries. Moved by Councillor Fitzgerald, seconded by Deputy Mayor Armour. Be it resolved that we do hereby adjourn at 3:26 p.m. All in favor? And that carries.